The clock on the diner wall showed 11:45 when Maya finally untied her apron. Her feet ached in a way that made her want to cry, but she'd learned years ago that crying didn't pay bills. She grabbed her thin jacket from the back room and waved goodbye to Tony, the night cook who always saved her a sandwich when the shift got too busy to eat. Outside, the December wind cut through her jacket like it wasn't even there. Maya pulled it tighter anyway and started the long walk home. She couldn't afford the bus anymore, not since her mother's medication costs went up again. 23 blocks. She'd counted them so many times she could walk the route with her eyes closed. The city looked different at midnight, quieter. The fancy shops were all closed, their windows full of things Maya would never be able to buy. She used to stop and look at them, imagining a different life. Now she just kept walking, too tired to dream. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She already knew what it was before she looked. Another text from the landlord. This one was less polite than the last. 3 months behind on rent, and Mr. Peterson was done being patient. She had until the end of the week to come up with $1,800 or they were out. Maya did the math in her head for the 100th time that day. Even with both her jobs, even if she didn't eat for a week, even if she sold everything they owned, she couldn't make that number work. The math never worked out. It hadn't worked out in so long that she'd started to forget what it felt like when things added up right. The apartment building looked worse in the dark. The front door lock had been broken for months. The hallway smelled like old cooking and something else Maya tried not to think about. She climbed the stairs slowly, holding the railing that wobbled under her hand. Home was apartment 3C. A one-bedroom place that used to feel cozy when her dad was still around and her mom was healthy. Now it just felt small and sad. Maya found the right key on her ring and pushed the door open as quietly as she could. Her mother was asleep in the bedroom, the soft sound of her breathing mixing with the hum of the old heater. Maya stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching. Rosa Torres had been beautiful once. Maya had seen the pictures. Now she looked so much older than 52. Her body worn down by diabetes and worry and all the things that came with being poor and sick in a country where healthcare cost more than hope. The kitchen table was covered in papers. Bills mostly, red ink everywhere. Maya had organized them by date last week, thinking somehow that would make them less scary. It hadn't worked. The medical bills alone were over $15,000. The collection agency called 3 times a day. Maya had stopped answering her phone unless she recognized the number. She made herself a cup of tea with a bag she'd already used twice and sat down at the table. This was her routine. Come home, check on mom, sit with the bills, pretend she was going to figure something out. She pulled out the calculator on her phone and started adding again. Rent, utilities, medicine, food. The numbers swam in front of her tired eyes. 2 years ago, Maya had been in community college studying to be a nurse. She'd been good at it too. Her professors said she had a gift for making people feel comfortable, like she really cared about them. She did care. She wanted to help people, wanted to be the kind of nurse who remembered your name and held your hand when you were scared. But then her mom got really sick, and the hospital bills started coming, and Maya had to make a choice. School or survival. It hadn't felt like much of a choice at the time. She dropped out, picked up a second job, and told herself it was just temporary. That was 18 months ago. Sometimes, late at night like this, Maya let herself imagine going back. Finishing her degree. Wearing scrubs with her name embroidered on them. Having a career instead of just jobs. Making enough money that she didn't have to choose between her mother's insulin and the electric bill. But then morning would come, and she'd be back at the diner taking orders from people who didn't see her, didn't even look at her face when she refilled their coffee. And after the diner, she'd head to her other job cleaning office buildings, emptying trash cans for people who made more in an hour than she made in a week. Maya finished her tea and looked at the clock. 1:30. She had to be up at 6 for the breakfast shift. 4.5 hours of sleep if she was lucky. She brushed her teeth, changed into the oversized t-shirt she slept in, and climbed into the small couch that doubled as her bed. The apartment was never really quiet. Mrs. Chen upstairs always had her TV on too loud. The couple next door fought in Spanish, their voices rising and falling through the thin walls. Someone's baby was always crying somewhere in the building. Tonight it was the Rodriguez family down the hall. Their little boy had been sick for days. Maya pulled the blanket up to her chin and closed her eyes. Sleep came fast these days. She was always so tired that her body just shut down the moment she lay down. No time for thoughts or worries or dreams, just darkness and a few precious hours of nothing. But then something pulled her back. A sound that didn't fit with the usual nighttime symphony of the building. Maya's eyes opened. She lay still listening. There it was again, crying. But not like the Rodriguez baby. This was different. Smaller somehow. Desperate. She sat up, her heart beating faster. The crying was coming from right outside her door. Maya got up and walked across the dark apartment, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. She pressed her ear against the door. Definitely crying. A baby crying. For a moment she thought about going back to bed. It wasn't her problem. Someone else would deal with it. She had enough to worry about without adding someone else's crisis to her list. But the crying continued and something about it made her chest hurt. Maya unlocked the door and opened it slowly. The hallway was dark except for the one flickering light at the end. She looked left, then right. Nothing. But the crying was louder now, more urgent. She stepped out into the hallway in her bare feet and t-shirt, the cold air making her shiver. That's when she saw it. A box. Just a regular cardboard box, the kind you'd use to move or store things. It was sitting right next to her door, and the crying was coming from inside it. Maya's hand went to her mouth. No, it couldn't be. She knelt down next to the box, her hands shaking as she pulled back the flaps. Inside, wrapped in a thin yellow blanket, was a baby. A tiny baby with dark hair and the smallest fingers Maya had ever seen. The baby's face was red from crying, little fists waving in the air like she was fighting something Maya couldn't see. Without thinking, Maya picked her up. The baby was surprisingly light, like she weighed almost nothing at all. Maya held her close, trying to share her warmth, and the crying softened to small hiccups. Brown eyes looked up at her, so trusting it made Maya want to cry too. There was a piece of paper in the box, folded up small. Maya picked it up with one hand while holding the baby with the other. The handwriting was messy, written by someone whose hand had been shaking. Her name is Sophia. I can't give her what she needs. Please help her. I'm sorry. Maya stood there in the cold hallway holding a stranger's baby, reading words written by someone whose heart must have been breaking. She knew she should knock on doors, call for help, call the police. But she couldn't move. She just stood there, swaying slightly back and forth the way she'd seen mothers do, while Sophia finally stopped crying completely and closed her eyes. And in that moment, in a hallway that smelled like old carpets and broken dreams, something inside Maya shifted. She didn't know it yet, but her life had just changed forever. Not because of money or luck or any of the things she'd been praying for, but because of a cry in the night and a choice she hadn't even realized she was making. Maya carried Sophia inside and closed the door with her foot. Her hands were still shaking, but not from the cold anymore. She looked down at the baby in her arms, at this tiny person who had been left in a hallway like forgotten mail, and felt her throat get tight. The apartment suddenly felt different, too quiet and too loud at the same time. Maya could hear her own breathing, could hear the old heater clicking, could hear her mother shifting in the bedroom, but mostly she could hear her own thoughts racing. What was she supposed to do? Who leaves a baby in a hallway? And why her door? Sophia made a small sound, not quite a cry, but close to it. Maya realized she was standing frozen in the middle of the living room like a statue. She shook her head and moved to the couch, sitting down carefully. The baby's eyes were open now, looking at her with that intense way babies have of staring, like they can see right through you. Okay, Maya whispered, though she wasn't sure who she was talking to. Okay, think. She needed to call someone. That was obvious. The police. Child services. Someone official who knew what to do in situations like this. But it was 2 a.m. and Sophia was warm now, calm in her arms. What would happen if she called? They'd take her away. Put her in the system. Maya had heard stories about foster care, about how overwhelmed it was, about kids bouncing from home to home. But this wasn't her baby. She couldn't just keep someone else's child. That was crazy. That was illegal, wasn't it? Maya looked at the note again. I can't give her what she needs. The words felt heavy, written by someone who'd run out of options. Maya understood that feeling. She lived with it every single day. The mother, whoever she was, hadn't abandoned Sophia because she didn't care. She'd left her because she did care. Because sometimes caring means knowing when you can't be what someone needs. Sophia yawned. A tiny, perfect yawn that showed pink gums and made Maya's heart hurt. The blanket she was wrapped in was so thin it was almost see-through. The box had been cardboard, not even a proper basket. Nothing else. No bottles, no diapers, no formula. Just a baby and a note and hope that someone would care. "What am I going to do with you?" Maya whispered. She spent the next hour just holding Sophia, watching her drift in and out of sleep. Every time Maya thought about putting her down and making the call she knew she should make, Sophia would stir or make a sound, and Maya would wait a little longer. The sky outside started to change from black to dark blue. Morning was coming. Finally, Maya heard her mother moving in the bedroom. The familiar sounds of Rosa waking up, the creak of the bed, the shuffle of feet. Maya took a breath. She needed to tell her mom. She couldn't hide a baby in a one-bedroom apartment. Rosa came out of the bedroom in her robe, moving slowly the way she always did in the mornings, her joints stiff from lying down. She was halfway to the bathroom before she noticed Maya on the couch. Then she stopped, squinted, looked again. "Maya, is that a baby?" "Mom, sit down. I need to tell you something." The whole story came out in a rush. The crying, the box, the note. Rosa listened without interrupting, her face impossible to read. When Maya finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. "You need to call someone," Rosa finally said. "I know, but you haven't." "No." Rosa walked over slowly and sat down next to Maya. She reached out one finger and touched Sophia's tiny hand. The baby grabbed it instinctively, holding on with surprising strength. Rosa's eyes got wet. "She's so small," Rosa whispered. "Just a baby. Maybe 3 months old, if that." "I'm going to call," Maya said. "I just wanted to make sure she was warm first, but she didn't call. Not yet." Instead, she and her mother sat together on the couch as the sun came up, taking turns holding Sophia. Rosa found an old blanket softer than the thin one from the box. They wrapped Sophia up carefully, and she seemed content, making little snuffling sounds in her sleep. By 8 in the morning, Maya knew she had to do something. She called Tony at the diner and told him she had an emergency, that she couldn't come in. He wasn't happy, but he didn't fire her, which was something. Then she looked at Sophia, really looked at her, and made a decision that surprised even herself. "I'm taking her to the hospital," she told her mother, "just to make sure she's okay. Then I'll figure out what to do." The emergency room was busy even on a Tuesday morning. Maya sat in a plastic chair with Sophia in her arms, waiting for someone to call their number. People stared. A few smiled. One old woman asked how old her baby was, and Maya didn't correct her. When they finally got called back, Maya told the nurse everything. About finding Sophia, about the note, about not knowing what to do. The nurse, a tired-looking woman named Patricia, listened carefully and then examined Sophia with gentle hands. "She's healthy," Patricia said after a while. "A little underweight, but nothing serious. I need to call Child Protective Services, though." "That's protocol." Maya nodded. She'd known this was coming. But when Patricia stepped out to make the call, Maya looked down at Sophia and felt something crack open in her chest. This baby had been left at her door specifically, not someone else's, hers. Why? Was it random? Or had someone watched her, seen her coming home late from work, thought she looked like someone who might care? Patricia came back with another woman. This one was younger, dressed in business casual clothes, carrying a folder. She introduced herself as Lisa Chen from Child Protective Services. She had kind eyes but a tired voice. "Thank you for bringing her in," Lisa said, sitting down. "You did the right thing." "What happens to her now?" Maya asked. "We'll place her in emergency foster care while we try to locate the mother. If we can't find her, or if she doesn't want to be found, Sophia will enter the system permanently. We'll work to find her a permanent home." "How long does that take?" Lisa sighed. "It depends. We're really overwhelmed right now. Could be weeks, could be months." Maya thought about her apartment, about the bills on her table, about how she could barely take care of herself and her mother. She thought about everything that made this a terrible idea. Then she thought about Sophia's tiny hand grabbing her finger, about brown eyes looking at her with complete trust. "What if I wanted to keep her?" The words came out before Maya could stop them. "Temporarily, I mean." "Foster her." Lisa looked surprised. That's generous. But there's a process. Background checks, home visits, training. And financially, foster parents receive a stipend, but it's not much. "How much?" "About $500 a month, depending on the child's needs." Maya did the math in her head. $500. It wasn't enough to solve all her problems, but it was something. More than that, though, was the feeling she couldn't shake. The feeling that maybe this was why Sophia had been left at her door. Maybe she was supposed to help. "I want to try," Maya said. "Tell me what I need to do." The next week was the hardest of Maya's life, and that was saying something. Lisa came to do a home visit, walking through the tiny apartment with a clipboard writing notes. Maya cleaned like she'd never cleaned before, trying to make the worn furniture and peeling paint look like a place worthy of a child. "It's small," Lisa said, not unkindly, "and I have concerns about your financial situation. You're young, you're struggling already. Are you sure about this?" Maya wasn't sure about anything, but she looked at Sophia, who was asleep in the laundry basket they'd lined with blankets to use as a temporary bed, and she nodded. Rosa helped as much as she could. Despite being sick, despite having her own pain to deal with, she held Sophia when Maya had to work. She changed diapers and heated bottles that the hospital had provided, and she didn't once tell Maya this was crazy, even though they both knew it was. The diner let Maya bring Sophia to work during the slow hours. Tony grumbled about it, but she could tell he didn't really mind. Customers loved seeing a baby. Tips actually went up, but her other job, the night cleaning, told her not to come back. They needed someone reliable, someone without complications. Maya added that lost income to her list of problems and tried not to panic. Money got tighter. The bills didn't care that Maya was trying to do something good. They kept coming, kept demanding attention. Maya started selling things. Her laptop, some old jewelry, a guitar she'd gotten for her 15th birthday. Every little bit helped, but it was never enough. Then something unexpected happened. A local news station picked up the story. Someone at the hospital had tipped them off about the abandoned baby and the young woman trying to foster her. Maya came home from work one day to find a reporter waiting outside her building. She almost didn't talk to them. She hated attention, hated the idea of strangers knowing her business. But the reporter, a woman named Diane, was persistent and genuine. She promised to tell the story respectfully, to focus on the good. "People need hope right now," Diane said, "and you're giving this baby a chance. That matters." So Maya said yes. They filmed her at the apartment with Sophia in her arms, talking about that night in the hallway. About making a choice to help even when it didn't make sense. About believing that sometimes you do the right thing not because it's easy, but because it's right. The segment aired on a Thursday evening. Maya didn't watch it. She couldn't bear to see herself on screen, to hear her own voice talking about being poor and struggling. But other people watched. Lots of people. By Friday morning, Maya's phone was full of messages. Strangers offering support, a local church wanting to donate baby supplies, a lawyer offering to help with the adoption paperwork for free. It was overwhelming and wonderful and terrifying all at once. The most surprising message came from a number she didn't recognize. A woman's voice, older, refined. "Hello, this is calling for Maya Torres. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. I saw your story on the news and I'd very much like to help. Please call me back." Maya saved the message but didn't call back. Not at first. She was suspicious of offers that seemed too good, of people with money who wanted to feel good about themselves by helping the poor girl. But Rosa, practical as always, told her to at least see what the woman wanted. "What do you have to lose?" her mother asked. Everything, Maya thought. But she was already losing everything anyway. So what was one more risk? She called the number back, her heart pounding. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. "Hello?" The voice was warm, cultured, exactly like the message. "Hi, this is Maya Torres. You called about Sophia?" "Yes. Thank you so much for calling back. I know this must seem strange, but I'd really love to meet you. And Sophia, of course. Would that be possible?" Maya's instinct was to say no, but something in the woman's voice stopped her. There was genuine emotion there, not just politeness. Something real. "Okay," Maya heard herself say. "When?" Eleanor Whitmore arrived exactly when she said she would. Maya watched from the window as a sleek black car pulled up outside the building, looking completely out of place among the beat-up sedans and rusted trucks that usually lined the street. A driver got out first, then opened the back door for a woman who moved with the kind of grace that came from never having to worry about money. Maya's stomach twisted with anxiety. She'd cleaned the apartment again that morning, but it still looked like what it was, a poor person's home. Worn furniture, cracked linoleum, walls that needed paint. She almost called to cancel. But then Sophia started fussing and Maya didn't have time to second-guess herself anymore. The knock on the door was gentle. Maya took a breath and opened it. Eleanor Whitmore was not what Maya expected. Yes, she wore expensive clothes and carried herself like someone important. But her face was kind, with soft wrinkles around her eyes that came from smiling. She looked to be in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and pearls at her throat. "Maya," Eleanor said warmly, like they were old friends. "Thank you for agreeing to see me. And this must be Sophia." Maya stepped back to let her in, suddenly aware of how cramped the apartment must seem to someone like Eleanor. But the older woman didn't seem to notice or care. Her attention was fixed on Sophia, who was awake in Maya's arms looking at this new person with curious eyes. "May I?" Eleanor asked, holding out her arms. Maya hesitated only a second before handing Sophia over. Eleanor took the baby with practiced ease, cradling her naturally. For a moment, something painful crossed her face, but it was gone so quickly. Maya almost thought she'd imagined it. "She's beautiful," Eleanor whispered. "How old do they think she is?" "About 3 months. The doctors aren't completely sure." Rosa came out of the bedroom then, moving slowly, and Maya introduced her mother. Eleanor greeted Rosa with the same warmth, not talking down to her or treating her like she was less than. They all sat down in the cramped living room, Sophia content in Eleanor's arms. "I suppose you're wondering why I'm here," Eleanor said after a moment. "Kind of," Maya admitted. Eleanor smiled sadly. "I had a daughter once. Her name was Catherine. She would have been about your age now." The past tense hung in the air. "She died when she was 16. A car accident. It's been almost 20 years, but there are still days when I forget she's gone. I wake up and think I need to check on her, make sure she's up for school." Maya didn't know what to say. "I'm sorry" seemed too small for something that big. "When I saw your story on the news," Eleanor continued, "I saw a young woman who reminded me of what Catherine might have become. Compassionate, brave, willing to sacrifice for others. And I saw this baby who needed someone to fight for her. I couldn't just sit in my big empty house and do nothing." "What do you want to do?" Maya asked carefully. "I want to help, however you'll let me. I know that sounds vague, but I mean it. You need resources to take care of Sophia properly, and I have more resources than I could ever use. It seems simple to me. Nothing was ever simple when it came to people with money." Maya had learned that the hard way. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Eleanor said firmly. "Think of it as an investment. In Sophia's future, in yours. You're fostering this child, working toward adoption. Let me help make that easier." "How?" Rosa asked, speaking up for the first time. Eleanor looked at her directly. "For starters, your medical bills. Maya told the reporter you're dealing with diabetes. That's expensive to manage properly." Maya's face burned. "I didn't mean to. I wasn't asking for—" "I know you weren't asking." "That's exactly why I want to help. You're not looking for a handout. You're working yourself to exhaustion trying to make it work. But what if you didn't have to struggle quite so hard? What if you could focus on Sophia and on finishing your education instead of juggling 3 jobs and drowning in debt?" It sounded too good to be true. Maya's life had taught her that when something sounded too good to be true, it usually was. "What do you get out of this?" Eleanor looked down at Sophia, stroking her soft hair with one finger. "Purpose. A chance to be part of something good again. And honestly, a grandmother of sorts. I've missed that. Having someone to care for." The words hit Maya harder than she expected. She'd been so focused on surviving that she'd forgotten what it felt like to have someone care about her. To have family beyond just her mother. Her father had left when she was 10. And everyone else had slowly drifted away as money got tight and life got hard. "I need to think about it," Maya said. "Of course. I didn't expect an answer today. But while you're thinking, would you let me at least handle Sophia's immediate needs? Diapers, formula, proper clothes? No strings attached. Just baby supplies." Maya wanted to say no on principle, but she also thought about the dwindling box of diapers in the corner, about rationing formula to make it last. Pride was expensive, and she couldn't afford it anymore. "Okay," she finally said. "Just the baby stuff." Eleanor smiled like Maya had given her a gift. "Perfect. I'll have things delivered tomorrow." True to her word, boxes started arriving the next day. Not just a few things. Everything Sophia could possibly need. A proper crib, a car seat, clothes in multiple sizes, Enough diapers and formula to last months. There were also toys, soft and colorful, and books for babies. A rocking chair appeared, perfect for late-night feedings. The apartment transformed from a place barely managing to house a baby to somewhere a baby could actually thrive. Maya cried when she saw it all. Rosa held her while she sobbed, all the stress and fear and exhaustion pouring out. They'd been holding on by their fingernails for so long, and suddenly someone had thrown them a rope. But the boxes weren't the biggest surprise. A few days later, Lisa from Child Services called. The home visit had been approved. Maya was officially Sophia's foster mother. The paperwork would take time, but it was real. It was happening. I have to say, Lisa told her over the phone, I had concerns at first. But you've really stepped up. Sophia's lucky to have you. Lucky. The word felt strange. Maya had never thought of herself as lucky. But looking at Sophia in her new crib, wearing soft pajamas instead of hand-me-downs, maybe they were both getting lucky together. Eleanor started visiting regularly, always calling first, never overstaying. She'd hold Sophia for hours, talking to her softly, singing old lullabies. Rosa and Eleanor became unlikely friends, bonding over tea and stories about their daughters. One dead and one grown. One afternoon, about 3 weeks after their first meeting, Eleanor made another offer. My foundation runs programs for struggling families, she said. We help people navigate the system, find resources, get back on their feet. We need someone who understands what it's like, who can connect with the people we're trying to help. Someone like you. Maya looked up from changing Sophia's diaper. Are you offering me a job? A part-time position to start. 20 hours a week. It would pay better than the diner, and the hours are flexible. You'd help other young parents access the services they need. And there's money for education. If you wanted to go back to school, we could make that happen. It was too much. Too perfect. Maya wanted to say yes so badly it hurt. But the cynical part of her brain, the part that had learned not to trust good fortune, kept waiting for the catch. Why me? She asked. You could hire anyone. Because you've lived it, Eleanor said simply. You know what it's like to choose between medicine and rent. To be invisible to people who have more, that's not something you can teach. And because when you found a baby in your hallway, you didn't just call the authorities and wash your hands of it. You took responsibility. That tells me who you are. Maya looked at her mother, who nodded encouragingly, then at Sophia, who was watching her with those serious brown eyes. Okay, Maya said. Yes, thank you. The job started the following week. Maya reduced her hours at the diner but didn't quit entirely. Tony had been good to her, and she wasn't the type to forget that. The foundation work was different from anything she'd done before. She met with families, listened to their stories, helped them fill out applications for assistance programs. It was hard in a different way than waitressing, but it felt meaningful. And Eleanor made good on her promise about education. Maya enrolled in online classes at the community college, working toward her nursing degree again. It was slow going, studying after Sophia went to sleep, but it was progress. Real progress. Money was still tight, but not suffocating anymore. Rosa's medication was covered. The medical bills were being paid down bit by bit. They weren't going to get evicted. That alone felt like a miracle. But just when Maya was starting to believe things might actually work out, life reminded her that nothing was ever simple. Lisa called on a random Tuesday afternoon, her voice tight with something Maya couldn't identify. We need to talk, Lisa said. It's about Sophia's mother. Maya's stomach dropped. Did you find her? Not exactly. But she's reached out. She wants to see Sophia. The world tilted. Maya sat down hard on the couch, her free hand instinctively reaching for Sophia, who was napping in her crib. What does that mean? Is she taking her back? I don't know yet. She's 17 years old, Maya. A kid herself, homeless, struggling. She says she made a mistake, that she wants another chance. She left her in a hallway, Maya said, her voice sharper than she intended. In a cardboard box. It was December. Sophia could have died, I know, and legally, she may have already forfeited her rights by abandoning her, but she's asking for a meeting. And I think you should consider it. Why would I do that? Lisa sighed. Because she's Sophia's mother. Because she deserves to at least explain herself. And because if this goes to court, a judge will want to know that everyone tried to do what's best for Sophia, not what's easiest for the adults. Maya wanted to scream. She wanted to say no, to hang up, to pretend this call never happened. Sophia was hers now. She'd been the one getting up at 3 a.m. for feedings. She'd been the one learning how to soothe colic, how to read baby cues, how to love someone more than she loved herself. Where had Sophia's birth mother been for all of that? But she also remembered the note. I can't give her what she needs. She remembered being 19 and desperate, knowing the math didn't work, feeling trapped by circumstances beyond her control. What's her name? Maya asked quietly. Carmen Reyes. She's been living in shelters couch surfing. The outreach team found her after the news story aired. She saw Sophia on TV and broke down. Maya closed her eyes. When does she want to meet? This weekend. At my office. Supervised visit. You'd be there the whole time. Okay, Maya heard herself say, even though every instinct screamed to refuse. Okay. When Eleanor heard about it, she offered to come to the meeting for moral support. Maya almost said yes, but something stopped her. This felt like something she needed to do alone. Adult to adult, mother to mother. The weekend came too fast. Maya dressed Sophia in one of her prettiest outfits, a soft pink dress that Eleanor had bought. She realized she was doing it to prove something. Look how well I take care of her. Look how much better her life is with me. The drive to the social services building felt endless. Rosa stayed home understanding that this was Maya's moment. Lisa met them in the lobby, leading them to a small conference room with toys in one corner and uncomfortable chairs around a table. She'll be here in a few minutes, Lisa said gently. Remember, this is just a meeting. Nothing's decided today. Maya nodded, holding Sophia close, breathing in her baby smell, trying to memorize the weight of her in case this was the beginning of the end. Then the door opened, and Carmen Reyes walked in. She was tiny, barely 5 feet tall, with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that had seen better days. She couldn't have weighed more than 90 pounds. But what struck Maya most was how young she looked. Not 17, younger, like a child herself. Carmen's eyes went straight to Sophia and her face crumpled. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, she's so big. She's so beautiful. And despite everything, despite all her fear and anger and possessiveness, Maya felt her heart break a little for this girl who was barely more than a child herself. The silence in the room was heavy enough to crush bones. Carmen stood frozen by the door, tears streaming down her face, staring at Sophia like she was seeing a ghost. Maya held the baby tighter without meaning to, her body instinctively protective. Lisa sat quietly in the corner, letting the moment breathe. Would you like to sit down? Lisa finally asked Carmen gently. Carmen nodded and moved to a chair across from Maya, but her eyes never left Sophia. The baby, oblivious to the tension, was fascinated by a ribbon on her dress, trying to grab it with clumsy fingers. Thank you for coming, Carmen said softly, looking at Maya for the first time. I know you didn't have to. Maya didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. Can I? Carmen's voice cracked. Can I hold her? Just for a minute? Every fiber of Maya's being screamed no. But she looked at Lisa, who gave a small, encouraging nod. Slowly, fighting against every instinct, Maya stood up and walked the few steps to Carmen. The girl reached out with shaking hands, and Maya placed Sophia in her arms. Carmen pulled her daughter close, burying her face in Sophia's hair, and sobbed. Not quiet crying, but deep body-shaking sobs that made Maya look away. This was raw grief, the kind that comes from losing something you can't get back. I'm so sorry, Carmen gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know what else to do. Maya sat back down, her arms feeling empty, her heart racing. She watched Carmen rock Sophia, watched the baby look up at this stranger with curious eyes, and felt a complicated mix of emotions she couldn't name. After a few minutes, Carmen's crying slowed. She wiped her face with her sleeve and looked at Maya with red, swollen eyes. She looks healthy. You've been taking good care of her. I'm trying, Maya said, her voice coming out harder than she intended. I saw you on the news, the apartment, everything. It's more than I could give her. More than I ever had. Why? The word burst out of Maya before she could stop it. Why did you leave her like that? In a box in a hallway? Do you know how cold it was that night? Do you know what could have happened? Carmen flinched but didn't look away. I know how bad it was. But you don't understand what it was like. I had nowhere to go. No money, no family. I was living in the park, hiding from cops, trying to keep her fed and warm. I was failing. There are shelters, programs, people who could have helped. You think I didn't try? Carmen's voice got louder. Then she seemed to catch herself and soften. I went to 3 different shelters. 2 were full. One said they couldn't take babies. I called hotlines. Everyone had paperwork, waiting lists, rules I couldn't follow because I was barely surviving. And every day I kept her, she got thinner, started crying all the time. I knew I was killing her just by trying to keep her. Maya's throat tightened. She didn't want to feel sympathy for this girl, but the story was too familiar. The system that was supposed to help people but mostly just got in the way. The forms and waiting lists while real people suffered. Why my door? Maya asked. Carmen looked down at Sophia, smoothing her dark hair. I'd been watching you for a few days. I saw you coming home late at night. Saw how tired you looked, but how you always stopped to help Mrs. Rodriguez with her groceries. I saw you give money to the homeless guy on the corner even though you probably couldn't afford it. And I thought maybe you'd understand. Maybe you'd care. The room went quiet again. Lisa shifted in her chair but didn't speak. This was something that needed to happen between the two of them. I thought about the police, Carmen continued, or a fire station like they tell you to do. But I was scared they'd arrest me. I'm only 17. My dad, She trailed off, but Maya could fill in the blanks. The reason Carmen was on the streets. I just wanted her safe, and I wanted someone who might love her to find her. Sophia started fussing then, making her hungry sounds. Carmen looked panicked, like she didn't know what to do. Maya reached into the diaper bag and pulled out a bottle she'd prepared. Here, she said, handing it to Carmen. She eats every 3 hours. Carmen took the bottle with shaking hands and offered it to Sophia, who latched on immediately. They both watched the baby eat, and something in the room shifted. They weren't adversaries anymore. They were just 2 young women who both loved the same child. What do you want? Maya asked after a while. From this meeting. From Sophia. Carmen was quiet for a long time. I don't know, she finally admitted. When I saw her on TV, saw how good she looked, how happy, I just needed to see her. To know she was okay. That I did the right thing. You did, Maya said, surprising herself. It was terrible and dangerous, and there were better ways to do it. But you got her to safety. You chose her life over what you wanted. Carmen looked up, fresh tears in her eyes. I want to be her mom. I want to take back that night and choose differently. But I can't. And even if I could, I still don't have anything to offer her. No home, no job, no stability. Just more of what made me leave her in the first place. Child services could help you. Lisa spoke up gently. If you want to try to get Sophia back, there are programs. Housing assistance, job training, counseling. How long would that take? Carmen asked. Months. Maybe a year or more. You'd have to prove you're stable, that you can provide a safe home. Carmen looked at Sophia, who had finished the bottle and was starting to get drowsy. And where would she be during that time? In foster care. With Maya, if that's what everyone agrees to. What happens after? Carmen asked. If I get stable, if I do everything right? Lisa hesitated. That would be up to a judge. They'd look at what's best for Sophia, at her attachment to Maya, at your ability to parent, at everything. Maya felt her chest constrict. The possibility of losing Sophia, of all this being temporary, hit her like a punch. But she also looked at Carmen, this 17-year-old kid who was trying to navigate an impossible situation, and she didn't see an enemy. She saw herself at 17. She saw what she might have become if circumstances had been slightly different. The meeting lasted another hour. Carmen held Sophia, fed her, watched her sleep. She asked questions about Sophia's routine, what foods she liked, if she was sleeping through the night yet. Maya answered each one, sharing the knowledge she'd gained in the past 2 months of constant caregiving. When it was time to leave, Carmen kissed Sophia's forehead and handed her back to Maya. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. For saving her, for being what I couldn't be. Maya didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. They exchanged phone numbers at Lisa's suggestion, though neither of them knew if they'd actually use them. In the car on the way home, Maya felt hollowed out. She'd gone into that meeting expecting to hate Carmen, to see her as a threat. But instead, she'd seen a scared kid who'd made an impossible choice and was still paying for it. When she got home, Rosa took one look at her face and pulled her into a hug. Sophia stayed peaceful in Maya's arms, unaware of the adult complications swirling around her. How did it go? Rosa asked. I don't know. Maya said honestly. She's just a kid, Mom, younger than me, and she's been through hell. What does she want? I think she wants what I want. For Sophia to be okay. But she knows she can't give her that right now. That night after Sophia was asleep, Maya's phone rang. It was Carmen. I'm sorry to call, Carmen said. I needed to say something I couldn't say in front of the social worker. Okay. I'm not going to fight you for her, for Sophia. Carmen's voice was thick with tears. I thought maybe I would. I thought seeing her would make me want to take her back no matter what. But seeing how good she looks, how healthy and happy, I can't do that to her. She's bonded with you. You're her mom now. Maya's eyes burned. Carmen, but I want to ask you something. Can I still see her? Not a lot, just sometimes. I don't want to be her mom anymore. I can't be. But could I be? I don't know. Her friend? Someone in her life? Maya thought about it. About the complications. About the difficulty of navigating that kind of relationship. But she also thought about Sophia growing up with questions. Wondering where she came from. Who her birth mother was. Let's take it slow, Maya said. You focus on getting stable. Getting into those programs Lisa mentioned. And when you're ready, when you're in a better place, yes, you can be part of her life. Thank you, Carmen breathed. Thank you so much. They talked for another hour. Carmen told her story properly this time. Growing up with an abusive father, running away at 16, getting pregnant by a boyfriend who disappeared the moment he found out, living on the streets trying to keep herself and Sophia alive. The absolute desperation of that December night. Maya told her own story too. About dropping out of school, about her mother's illness, about feeling trapped by circumstances she couldn't control. They were different stories, but they rhymed in important ways. When they hung up, Maya felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was going to be complicated and messy, but maybe they could figure out a way forward that worked for everyone, especially for Sophia. The next day, Eleanor called. She'd heard about the meeting from Lisa, who'd updated her with Maya's permission. They'd all become connected in Sophia's care network. How are you holding up? Eleanor asked. I'm okay. It was hard, but Carmen's not what I expected. Good people can make terrible choices when they're desperate, Eleanor said quietly. I learned that working with the foundation. Sometimes the line between victim and villain is just circumstance. She's going to try to get stable, and I told her she could see Sophia sometimes once she's in a better place. That's very generous of you. Is it, though? Maya asked. Or am I just scared that if I say no, she'll change her mind and fight for custody? Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Maybe it's both. But generous doesn't have to mean selfless. It can mean wise. Keeping Carmen in Sophia's life in a healthy way might be what's best for everyone. That weekend, Eleanor made another offer. She had a small guest house on her property that was sitting empty. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a yard. She wondered if Maya and Rosa might want to live there, just for a while Maya finished school and figured things out. Maya's first instinct was to say no. She'd taken enough from Eleanor already. But then she thought about Sophia growing up in a place with a yard, about having space for Rosa to rest properly, about not hearing sirens and arguments through thin walls every night. What would you want in return? Maya asked carefully. Time with Sophia, Eleanor said honestly, and the chance to watch you become the nurse you're meant to be. I'm old and lonely, Maya. I have too much space and not enough family. You'd be doing me a favor. They moved in a month later. The guest house was small but beautiful, with big windows and a garden out back. Rosa cried when she saw her own bedroom, the first time she'd had privacy in years. Sophia had a nursery painted soft yellow, with clouds on the ceiling. Eleanor was a perfect landlord grandmother. She gave them space but was always there when needed. She'd knock on the door with fresh bread or offer to watch Sophia while Maya studied. She and Rosa became inseparable, drinking tea in the garden while Sophia played on a blanket between them. Maya threw herself into her studies with new intensity. She was taking a full course load now, working toward her nursing degree. The foundation job gave her flexible hours and practical experience. For the first time in years, the math was working out. Bills were paid. Food was plenty. The future looked possible. Carmen called every few weeks. She'd gotten into a program for homeless youth, was living in transitional housing, working on her GED. The conversations were awkward at first, but they got easier. Maya would send her pictures of Sophia, and Carmen would send updates on her progress. 6 months after their first meeting, Carmen asked if she could visit. Not officially, not through social services, just as someone who cared about Sophia. Maya agreed, and Carmen came to the guest house on a Saturday afternoon. She looked different, healthier. Her clothes were clean, her hair brushed. She'd gained weight and lost the haunted look in her eyes. She brought a stuffed bunny for Sophia and flowers for Maya. They sat in the garden while Sophia played with her toys. Rosa and Eleanor gave them privacy, understanding this was delicate ground. Carmen held Sophia for a while, and the baby smiled at her, recognizing something familiar even if she didn't understand what. "She's going to ask about me someday," Carmen said, "when she's older." "I know," Maya said, "and I'll tell her the truth. That you loved her enough to save her. That you're working hard to be someone she can be proud of." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "Do you think she will be?" "Proud of me?" "I think," Maya said carefully, "that you're 17 and you're fighting to build a life from nothing. Yeah, I think she'll be proud of that." As the sun set over the garden, the three of them sat together. Not a traditional family, but a family nonetheless, built from desperation and compassion, from impossible choices and second chances. And somehow, against all odds, it was working. 1 year later, Maya stood in front of her bathroom mirror adjusting her cap and gown. The navy blue fabric felt strange against her skin, formal and important. In the bedroom, she could hear Rosa cooing at Sophia, who was babbling back in her own language. The toddler was 16 months old now, walking everywhere on chubby legs, getting into everything. "Maya," Rosa called. "We're going to be late." "Coming!" Maya took one last look at herself. A year ago, she'd been a college dropout working at a diner, drowning in bills, unable to see past the next day. Now she was graduating with her nursing degree. Top of her class. Multiple job offers already lined up. It felt like someone else's life. The graduation ceremony was held outdoors on a beautiful spring day. Maya searched the crowd and found them easily. Rosa in her wheelchair, looking healthier than she had in years, holding Sophia on her lap. Eleanor beside them, elegant in a light blue dress, waving enthusiastically. And next to Eleanor, looking nervous and proud at the same time, was Carmen. Maya had invited her, though part of her had expected Carmen not to come. Their relationship was still complicated, still being figured out step by careful step. But Carmen had been sober for 8 months now. She'd gotten her GED and was working part-time at a bakery while taking community college classes. She saw Sophia once a month, supervised visits that had slowly become comfortable for everyone. When Maya's name was called and she walked across the stage to accept her diploma, the cheering from her section was loud enough to make other people turn and look. She saw Sophia waving her tiny hands, mimicking the adults around her, and Maya's eyes got wet behind her smile. After the ceremony, they all went out to celebrate at a restaurant Eleanor had reserved. Sophia sat in a high chair between Maya and Carmen, content to bounce between them both. Should have been awkward, but somehow it wasn't. They'd all learned to navigate this strange family they'd built. "Speech," Eleanor announced after their food arrived, tapping her water glass with a spoon. Maya groaned. "That's not a thing. It is now. You're the first person in this family to graduate college. That deserves a speech." "I'm not good at speeches." "Just say thank you and sit down," Rosa teased. Maya stood up, feeling self-conscious but also overwhelmed with gratitude. "Okay, fine, thank you." "All of you." "Mom, you've been fighting your own battle this whole time, but you never stopped supporting me." "Eleanor, you saw a news story about a struggling girl and you didn't just feel sorry for me. You gave me actual help." "And Carmen?" She looked at the young woman who was only 18 but had already lived several lifetimes worth of hard. "Thank you for trusting me with her. I know that wasn't easy." Carmen wiped her eyes. "Thank you for being everything I couldn't be." "You're being what she needs now," Maya said firmly. "You're working on yourself. That matters."